let's cut our stock to length. Alright, so we cut it to 12 inches. Now we're going to cut it to 1 7/8, so it's a square. Welcome back to Old Fart Engineering. Today's project, we're going to be making a hand drill for wood turning. This is very handy when you're doing bowl work where you need to pre-drill a center to do your hollowing of your bowl. We're going to use a 12-inch piece of poplar. It's cut to 1 7/8 by 1 7/8. Now you could use any wood you have on hand. It doesn't matter. If you want to make it fancy out of walnut or mahogany or a beautiful wood, you can. I just had a scrap piece of poplar, so we're going to go ahead and use that. You're going to need a drill chuck, but you want to make sure you get a drill chuck that's threaded in the end. This is a 3/8 fine thread on this one. I believe I paid about $8 for this on Amazon. And in my scrap bin, I happen to have a shaft that already had the threads cut on it. But you can easily make this with a tap or go to a local machine shop and have them make one for you. We're going to be cutting this off. This is far too long for what we need. So we'll be cutting that off at some point during the video. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll head over to the wood lathe and turn down our handle. All right? Join me over there. All right, so we've got our blank chucked up in the lathe. I'm holding with a chuck on one side and with a live center on the other. I'm going to be going ahead and using one of these carbide tipped easy tools. And let's start roughing this out. All right, we've got it almost rounded. We still have a couple of flats, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up our calipers so that we know our measurement. So I've got my chuck here, and I want my handle to be the same diameter as the chuck. So I'm going to leave it a little bit oversized for sanding. And actually, we're almost here. Probably by the time we get this rounded off, it'll be right where we need it. So let's focus up here on the top where the chuck's going. Alright, we've already got it. That's our diameter. So let me go ahead and round out the rest of it. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and determine how long we want this handle to be. I have fairly large hands, so I want it to comfortably fit my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and put a mark here. This will be where we flare out. So I want it a little bit more bulbous at the back, tapering in, and then tapering back out. So let's go ahead and put our profile in there. I'm going to mark my back just by doing a little cut in here. I don't want to weaken that because we're going to have to drill a hole in this still. And we're going to do that on the lathe with a Jacobs chuck on here. So now I'm switching over to my round-ended tool. Again, still one of the easy carbide tools. I just want to create a little bit of a curve here in the center, a little bit of an hourglass shape. So I'm just going to lightly sweep back and forth. I want to leave it wider over here at the end where we're going to be putting the Jacobs chuck. And again, this is just kind of the roughing out phase. Not worried about making it nice and smooth yet. We'll do that later with sanding. I just want to have a nice little indentation here for my hand. Which, actually, that feels pretty good already. So, we've gotten rid of all of our flats. We've got a good spot here. We're going to be rounding this over more. But let's go ahead and let's make our hole in it. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my Jacobs chuck. and then we'll drill a hole. All right, so I've got the Jacob chuck set up in the lathe here. I have my caliper set to the depth that I want, which is just under 3 inches. We'll set that up here so we can check our depth as we go. Now we're going to take this nice and easy and slowly crank this guy in here. We've got a lot sticking out, so we don't want to bind up. This also isn't the sharpest bit that I have. It's kind of smoking already. But it'll be fine. That's not a big deal here. Just backing out and clearing the chips every once in a while. All right, we're almost at the extent of the travel on this tailstock, so I'm going to go ahead and move this thing forward. I think we've reached an adequate depth here. We're going to loosen up the tailstock again and pull this out. Alright, so we'll be right back to go ahead and finish this up then. Alright, so I've got my live center back in the end here to support it. We're going to go ahead and finish our profiling. I'm going to go ahead and pull out, let me see, let me use a round scraper for this, just to clean it up quickly. Let me cut my end in a little bit. I'm not ready to part it off yet, but I did want to tuck that in a little bit so I can smooth out this back edge. I'm just going to do that with my skew. I'm going to come and take a little bit off each side here. Alright, we're going to go ahead and hit it with some sandpaper, get this smoothed out nicely. Let's take a look at that. Feels pretty good. Actually, that feels really nice. Let's get a little finer sandpaper to smooth it up a little bit more. We'll just grab a little piece of 120 here. Run over that again. Now, I don't want a super slick finish on this because this is going to be a tool, and I don't want it slipping in my hands when I'm using it. But I do want it smooth. That feels really nice. I'm going to get a little bit of wax to put on here. So I'm just using a little bit of paste wax that I have soaked into a rag here. I'm just going to rub that on and buff it in a little bit. And that'll give a nice comfortable finish. Just really let the wood soak it in. The heat from the turning, the friction, actually makes it penetrate very nicely. And you could use anything to finish this. If you wanted a little wipe-on poly or some beeswax, any of those things will work just fine. Okay, let me retract my live center here, and we're going to go ahead and part this off. Come in here nice and easy. I want to come in at a bit of an angle, just to concave the bottom. And we're almost there. There we go. All right, we're going to clean up this bottom with the chisel and apply a little bit of wax, and then we'll go over and we'll cut and measure and do all the mounting that we need to do to put the chuck in here. Okay, so we're back over here. We finished turning our handle. We need to now measure our depth so we know how long to cut. So almost 2.5 inches. So we need to mark from the collar down, because we want our threads obviously sticking out for the Jacob's chuck. So I'm going to mark it right there. Now you can cut this any number of ways. You could do it with a hacksaw. You could do it with the bandsaw. I'm going to just do it with the cut-off wheel on my grinder real quick. And then I'm also going to score some lines here as well, just for the epoxy to have something to grab onto. Alright, it's a little bit warm, but there we go. That's cut off. We can put that away. That's scrap. Alright, so I just grabbed a file real quick just so we can clean up this edge a little bit. Take the burr off of it. Because we want it to slide right into the hole nicely. We're going to be using 5-minute epoxy to set this in there, which should give us plenty of hold. And as you can see, I've made these little cuts around the diameter of this piece, just so that we can get it to fit nicely and hold with the epoxy. So, yep, it slides right in there. Let me pull that back out. Going to go ahead and mix up this epoxy. Now I'm just using 5-minute epoxy here. If you want, you could use some longer set times if you needed it. But I feel very comfortable with the 5-minute epoxy. I use it a lot, and it's always worked out fine for me. I've never had it let go. Just equal portions of it. The key is you got to mix it very thoroughly, so make sure you're scraping up from the bottom as you do this. And take a good 30 seconds or so to mix this. Alright, now we're just going to shovel this in the hole. Got a good amount in there. I also like to take and roll the shaft into the epoxy, just to get a little bit on there as well. I'm just going to push this in here. Now you're going to see as you push it in, it wants to kind of pull out a little. It's fighting me a bit. Let me grab a paper towel here. And push it in the rest of the way real quick. It's going to ooze out quite a bit of epoxy when I do that. And there we go, we're in. We just need to let this set up now for 5 minutes, and then we can mount our chuck to it. Alright, we'll come back for that. Well, our epoxy is set up, our stirring stick is stuck, so let's peel this away so we can go ahead and put the chuck onto the handle. So now to do this, I'm going to use a little bit of blue Loctite, but before I put the Loctite, I'm going to clean my threads, because it's always a possibility that some epoxy got in the threads. So I'm just going to use a little stainless steel wire brush here to make sure my threads are clean. Let's do a quick test fit. Alright, the thread's on. Let's take it all the way on. Alright, the threads are clean. Let me unthread this and then we'll put the blue Loctite on here. I'm going to go ahead and brush it one more time just to get rid of anything that might have been knocked loose at that point. Alright, perfect. Shake up my Loctite. Put a few dabs on there. Now again, like I said earlier, you could choose a fancier piece of wood, but for me this is utilitarian, so I'm perfectly happy with that handle. Let's go over to the lathe and try it out. Alright, so now when we're turning some kind of a vessel form where we need to hollow out the end, rather than setting up our Jacob's chuck and our tailstock and going through all that hassle, we can simply chuck this up and feed it in. Now I'm going to remove the tool rest so I don't bang my hand on it. And we're just going to feed it straight in. It will self-center. It's really cool how this works. Now, I wouldn't suggest using large bits. This is a 7/16. I wouldn't do anything bigger than this. Certainly wouldn't put a Forstner bit in it because that's just going to be too much grab for your hands to hold. So, let's go ahead, let's put this in. Let's dial back our speed a little bit. I don't want this going really fast because it's going to want to draw the bit in. And there it goes, nice and easy. So any kind of a vessel you're going to make, this is a great way to do your center hole for your hollowing. Nice and easy. I think that's a successful build. Well, and there we have it. A very handy tool for wood turning, especially if you're doing vessels or bowls. Thank you for watching Old Fart Engineering and joining us for this build. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, like, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Your comments, questions, and suggestions are always welcome. And we'll see you soon in the next episode of Old Fart Engineering. Thanks, and have a wonderful day.